Okay. Good morning, everyone. Wishing everyone a very, very happy holiday season. And welcome to our December um, Borough Service Cabinet and Borough Board meeting. Um, we will begin with our roll call. We'll start out with, uh, well, in usual form, please unmute yourself and, if possible, your video, and I'll call out the community board and you can just say present. We'll start with community board 1. Just giving folks time to get adjusted to the roll call coming up. Okay, community board 2.
Good morning, Rafa Acevedo, District Manager. Good morning, Madam Deputy. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Community board 3.
Yeah, I sent that picture to Tanya.
I heard someone, I didn't hear exactly who. Community board 3 again, please. Okay. Community board 4.
Felicidades, Robert Garmendez.
Oh, thank you. Community board 5.
Good morning, LaShonda Dotson, Community Coordinator.
Great, thank you. Community board 6. Community board 6. Okay, community board 7.
Hello, Deputy Borough President Emmanuel's here, Chair of CB7.
Good morning, great to hear you. And community board 8.
Good morning and happy holidays to everybody. Laura Spolter, Chair.
Thank you. Community board 9. Community board 10. Community board 11.
Yeah, I'm muted. Morning, Jeremy.
I see you, but your audio is a little broken up. But
Okay,
we
it's probably
see
my
you.
video. My connection's probably poor. All right.
All right, glad you're here. Community board 12.
Good morning, Madam Deputy, and everyone. Happy holidays. This is Dr. Michael Burke, Chairman of Community Board 12.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is George from Community Board 12.
Morning, George. And our council representatives for first, council member Ayala. Next, we have council member Dinowitz and council member Riley. Council member Jonai. Council member Cabrera.
Greg Faulkner for the last time, representing Councilman Cabrera.
Oh. Council member Felix. Council member Gibson.
Good morning, Madam Deputy, and happy holidays to everyone. I'm Tierno Alba, Outreach Liaison with Councilmember Gibson.
Awesome, thank you. Council member Salamanca. And last but not least, council member Diaz Sr.
Madam Deputy, I thought I saw Jose Rodriguez from Ayala's office, but I don't see him there now. He may have been kicked off. So
Oh, okay.
we'll
Well, we're
see him
having
next
some technical issues this morning across the board, I'm sure.
week.
I'm sure we'll have some people dropping in. As it is the December holiday season, maybe they're running a little bit late
Oh,
with
I'm Stephanie.
festivities and so
Sorry,
forth.
Stephanie here from Councilmember Ayala. I couldn't unmute myself.
Ah, see, I told you so. Glad to have you here. Okay, pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place here in all of our homes virtually Thursday, December 16th, 2021, beginning at approximately 10 a.m. And we have a robust agenda. Um, Obviously, a lot of interest in these two items. And we're going to begin with the development of permanent open resident program, restaurant program. And our presenters will be, and they will introduce themselves, please, as they bring up their presentation. But I have here Darissa Cruz, Senior Borough Planner, and Emily Whitehoff, Director of Public Space. And they're from the Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm also joined today by my colleague Eric Gregory at the Department of City Planning, and he's going to kick us off.
Great. Thank you, Emily, and Emily, Madam Deputy Bronx Borough Cabinet Board member, having us here today. We're excited to kind of come back with you with some updates on the overall project, but really dive into the design engagement and guidelines process, which we are beginning to kick off. Next slide. Our agenda for today is just give a kind of quick overview of where we're at, and then pass it on to Emily to kind of walk through in more detail kind of our goals for the program. But just to say at the onset that I think we're very eager to continue to engage and roll up the sleeves and look at this popular program, and how do we reimagine it for our streets as it's being reimagined for people, not cars. And we really do need to address legitimate concern that restaurants are good neighbors. So I think we've heard a lot of feedback already through the public review process for this amendment that I believe many of you are aware of. And we're really taking a hard look at what's working and what didn't as we kind of craft the permanent program. So just to let you know, kind of recapping some things, the City Planning Commission did vote on the 15th of November to approve the zoning and text amendment. They did have some conditions, and the things that are in place will remain with respect to zoning until the permanent program is fully established. We expect the council to really take a look at this and vote early next year. And really what we're here today is discuss kind of moving forward and this design engagement process, which we've been starting in November. It was announced actually back in October, and we're really starting to gain momentum, and it will really take off even more within early next year with a lot of different engagement sessions planned. Our goal is to create draft design guidelines for early spring and March that will help us, shift into the CAPA rulemaking process to kind of really lay the groundwork for how this program will be stood up going forward. And the guidelines will help kind of also inform that process. Not really depicted here, but this engagement, won't just end for design in March. It will actually continue on throughout the year as we take what we learn from New Yorkers, from all of you, through this process, as well as the rulemaking process, and kind of come back together and make finalized design guidelines and resources available for those, for community members, for neighbors, but also for restaurants. Next slide. So just a quick high-level overcap. So again, we're discussing a permanent open restaurants program that will be administered, both the sidewalk portion, so the sidewalk seating portion of the program and the roadway seating portion of the program will be administered by DOT. We think one of the best things about the emergency program is that it was opened up citywide, and that's something that we really want to make sure that we continue to do. We know that just looking at some of the numbers of the open restaurants today is vastly greater in the Bronx specifically than what they were when we just had the Sidewalk Cafe program with DCWP. So, I think we're approaching around 650 to 700 restaurants that are participating currently, whereas before these measures were taking place, there were, under 50 in the Bronx. So I think, we think it's really great to see that, and it's something that we think is really important to continue. We know that we need to do more robust and fine-tuned sidewalk clearance and the criteria for the roadway setups. This is very much a new thing, and I think we're learning as we go, along with a host of other city agencies, on how we can improve that and kind of troubleshooting on the fly. But know that we need to really come out strong with what this thing will look like as we move forward into a permanent program. And the sidewalk clear path and accessibility is clearly on our minds, which Emily will talk in greater detail in a moment. Also just want to say that while DOT will be administering the program, there will still be other agencies that are helping to kind of review these things on the street. And so DOHMH will clearly continue on food safety rules. Our colleagues at sanitation will still be responsible for garbage removal. And NYPD will continue to enforce noise. So these are all things that will be a collective effort across agencies. I'll pass it over to Emily now.
Thanks, Eric. Again, we have heard a lot from you all and from folks citywide about how we can build on the success of open restaurants and really take a hard look at how we can make improvements to ensure that this program can thrive in the future and make sure that there is a real balance between everybody who uses our streets. And so based on feedback from yourselves, from our city colleagues, from folks in the restaurant and industry professionals,
Emily,
we have set up the following goals. Hi, can folks hear me?
I can hear you.
Great, thank you. So we have set up the following goals as we look to develop design guidelines for the permanent program. The first is accessibility, making sure that both dining setups as well as our city streets and sidewalks are fully accessible to all users. Next is safety. Safety is top of mind at DOT, and so we want to make sure that the permanent program allows all the necessary access to streets, buildings, properties for emergency vehicles, and also ensuring that the setups themselves are safely visible, that sight lines are clear so that cars can see all the proper signage on our roadways, but that also drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians can all see each other and make sure that we're all using our streets safely. The next goal is to really think through flexibility and promote coordination between the setups and the whole wide variety of activity that happens on our streets. And that's everything from emergency utility work to all of the transportation planning that we do on a daily basis, thinking through bus lanes, bike lanes, neighborhood loading and delivery access, as well as ensuring that we can continue to maintain and keep our streets clean. Another big goal is equity, as Eric mentioned. Allowing this program to operate citywide has been a great success, and we've seen a tremendous growth in participation. And we want to make sure that program design guidelines moving forward are inclusive and allow all businesses an opportunity to participate. And lastly, appearance and neighborhood context. Another big goal, we want to make sure that our design guidelines are promoting clean, attractive, well-maintained setups, but also that they are responsible to the wide variety of neighborhoods that we have across this city, and making sure that they can work well in the varying street and neighborhood contexts. And so we're here today to ask for your help in getting the word out about our engagement around these design guidelines to make sure that we're inclusive and incorporating as many voices as possible. We are, as Eric mentioned, in an ongoing discussion with a large group of our sister agencies, everyone from emergency services to sanitation to Department of Small Businesses to Department of Health, to really make sure that this program can work for everyone moving forward. We're also going to be collaborating with the Alfresco NYC team, who is bringing together industry professionals, transportation advocates, accessibility advocates, folks from the Hospitality Alliance, and a bunch of folks from the design profession to provide best practices and specific feedback about what's working and what's not for outdoor dining. We have a public survey that's live on our website and encourage you all to share that link. It will be open through the end of January, and that's gonna be helpful to give us a snapshot of what folks are thinking about open restaurants at a very high level. We also have this one-page brochure that's on our website. It's something that you can share the PDF file and download. You can also print it out and share with your stakeholders. Eric will share links in the chat. This one-page brochure describes the kind of high-level trajectory of what we hope to achieve in a permanent program, and also includes a link to the survey. So great resource, again, to make sure folks are up to speed on the vision for the new program. And lastly, we're going to be hosting a series of virtual public roundtables. The first two are going to be in January, and we'll share details about those in the next slide. The goal is to solicit specific feedback during those sessions that will then help us deliver the draft of the design guidelines in March. And then we'll be doing another robust set of community engagement to get feedback specifically on that draft. Please bookmark and have at ready nyc.gov/open restaurants. This is your one-stop shop to all the updates, everything that's happening with the program. This is where you can find a link to our presentation today, as well as a schedule for all community engagement moving forward, as well as the links to this brochure and our survey. We have a few more meetings with borough boards in the coming days and into January with Staten Island. Our virtual public roundtables will be Tuesday, January 11th, midday, and then Wednesday, January 12th in the evening. Links will be up to register on our website, and we'll make sure that when those are live, we'll share with all of you. Again, the goal is to have a draft release of the guidelines and then start another robust round of public engagement so folks can really look at the framework of these guidelines and give us more specific thoughts and feedback. And then that will lead into our CAPA and rulemaking process in through the spring, summer, and fall of next year. And with that, we thank you for having us and would like to open it up to you for any questions that you may have.
All right, so if anybody who has a question could raise their hand. If you're on a phone,
George, I see your, I see your actual and virtual hands. If you're on a phone, you can raise your hand with *9. And if you are in WebEx on a computer or a tablet or a smartphone, you should see a raise hand button. So right now, George, you raised your hand first. Go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. It's still maybe really early in the morning for me, so this seems a little bit like deja vu. Am I wrong in thinking that this was not the presentation that was given to us at the community board level and we were only talking about sidewalks? Is this like a new presentation where we're now extending it into the street?
Correct.
When we discussed this
Mm-hmm.
2 months ago, or maybe 3 months ago when DOT was here, we were not talking about the New York City street. So are we starting like a new round? And that's why it's delayed because I recall having, it may even been here at Borough Board because Bobby Crespo was on the call, the chair of Community Board 2, and he had reservations about it being in the street, especially on the trains. Like I have here, I have 2 subway lines, and we have very real concerns about permanent restaurants in the street. And I recall DSNY also having issues with these permanent structures in the street, especially when they're related to snow and winter and all this other sort of stuff. So I'm just trying to get a better handle. Maybe you can clear up some of this confusion. Like, again, it might be really early in the morning for me and I'm just not remembering. We do get a lot of information, but can you clear that up for me? Is this a new round or is this the same thing that we were discussing just 2 months ago?
So this is building on the what was discussed with you guys a few months ago. The goal has been to take both the sidewalk and the roadway dining and think about them in a comprehensive way and take lessons learned, what's working, what's not working in the emergency program, and transition to a much more fine-tuned set of rules and guidance around the program that's focused on safety and accessibility. I have other colleagues on from DOT, Julie, Judy, and Darissa, and I don't know if it's if you guys want to jump in with anything about kind of the past, what was presented at the past community board meeting, and how that has gotten us to this moment.
Sorry, I had missed the initial question, but I'll go off of what Emily said. We have presented in the past of where we were sort of at, and we're now entering this new round of outreach to really gain input from the community and to better help us develop these guidelines for the permanent program. And so that's sort of where we are now. We're coming to you to present on. Sorry.
Eric, city planning. Oh.
Go ahead, Eric. I think you're
My apologies.
you might be on a little bit of a delay.
I'm having connection issues. So I didn't talk to you, Julie. Turning off my plate. Can everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
Apology. Very bad bandwidth issues here. I want to say that to the point about talking about sidewalks previously, we didn't previously to talk about the text amendment, which was specifically what the City Planning Commission is looking at with the relationship of how we were addressing the sidewalk regulations, which are within zoning. So I think that when we did present was really focused in on that. Both agencies were was ultimately for both at those meetings. But what the commission was looking at was taking out the geographical restrictions with the zoning text and a few other miscellaneous items.
All right. I believe that Is that everything from DOT on that? If so, I see Arlene Parks says her hand raised. So Arlene, go ahead.
Thank you and good morning. Um, in my portion of the district, we have severe traffic congestion issues. We have parking issues, and many of the issues that we have been caused by DOT and changes in the traffic patterns that we have here. And most recently, that Jackson Avenue Bicycle Boulevard that displaced about 150 vehicles there. And our board voted not to support DOT in this effort because of trust issues and issues regarding DOT not being responsive to work with the community on changes where it would not cause such severe parking issues and traffic congestions. And so my question is, as we move forward with this initiative, how will DOT work with my district on issues to resolve issues so that there's no further parking taken offline and that the open street restaurants that are selected, there is some meaningful input from the community board and the community.
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think part of the reason we're here is to hear from you and hear from the community. And going forward, we have a number of meetings coming up that will include public input. And so I think exactly what you're saying. We want to hear from you where you think this would be most useful, where it will not be, and really make this program something that, can work in everyone's district.
I'm not certain that that is going to build the trust level up on my board because in advance of certainly taking offline parking, there has not been meaningful impact between DOT and my board. And so it's a challenge. And I'm just looking to understand how DOT is going to be responsive, really responsive, and not just go through a public process. And at the end of the day, we get what we get.
Well, I think we are trying to be very responsive and trying to listen to all of the input that we're getting right now. And then in addition, once the restaurants who do feel like they want to be part of this program, once they apply, there is an application process that they would go through that is will be very different than the current one, that it's not just a self-certification, but a full application process that needs to be reviewed and includes a public hearing as well. So that is part of.
So my other question,
can I just
jump in?
I'm sorry, Ms. Parks.
First of all, I'm not finished. If I could just finish up my second question. There were concerns about what role property owners is playing in giving permission for these commercial restaurants in being able to have a street cafe or participate in the program. So if, for example, you are a property owner and you're leasing up a certain space and now the restaurant wants to extend that, what provisions do you have in the process to get approval from the landlord?
The process is still being worked out, but it's something that we are looking at right now.
Right, because to the extent that the restaurant is causing issues with rat infestation, garbage, it's the landlord that gets the ticket. So I would be looking to see or to ensure that you have some mechanism in place to get the landlord's approval prior to the restaurant being able to just do it.
It's an excellent point, and it's something that we are definitely thinking about. And once we come back with full guidelines, there will be something in there about that.
Okay, and just my final point, because the landlord is leasing up a certain amount of space to that restaurant. So now that it's being extended, again, those are the kind of things you need to look at. Okay, that's all I have at this time.
So what I was going to say, and apologies again for the interruption, Ms. Park, was that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
I didn't know it was you.
It was okay. I sensed that, but yet it was your time to speak, so you had the floor. What I wanted to do was try to. It seemed like we were being all very general and also very polite in some of the things that we were asking and responding, and I thought that maybe it would be helpful if we could be a little more specific and ask what is the current application process, and is there a community board a role currently where there is at least an approval or something like that, where each application will be reviewed or get a heads up or some process by the community board. And I think that's what you were alluding to when you said to have, so we're not so much concerned for the public time, which of course is mandated public hearings and such, and they have their role as well. Once that's over, what is the application process, and does it include the community board at any level, and what is that role?
Currently, there is no, in the process right now in the program, in the temporary program, we are there, it's a self-certification, so there is no community input. Going forward in the permanent program, there will be community input. There will be an application that the restaurants need to apply and will be reviewed by planners and reviewers here at DOT. And then there will be, for the roadway, a public hearing on each of those. And for the sidewalk, it will stay the same as the current sidewalk cafe process, where there will be community board input.
So the ones on the street will not have community board input?
The ones on the street will have a public hearing.
Okay. So because that was a little bit misleading, because the question was about community boards input. Okay, so we have our answer.
And again, this is all still in the process of being designed. And so we are taking back all of this feedback. So if you really feel like community boards, we can take back this feedback to everyone and to City Hall and all that the community boards and such are feeling that the roadway needs to have community board input as well. And this is something that we can continue looking at.
To be clear, it is absolutely at least one express member's opinion that not getting community board approval or even a heads up is affecting parking and such. And then so it should be clear that is what is desired. And then
yes,
also
understood.
Okay. Any other hands, Chris?
Yes. Yeah, Laura, I saw yours, but I saw CB11 first. So
okay.
Whoever signed in on a CB11 account, go ahead.
Thanks, Chris. It's Jeremy from. You hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So I think I have the answer already. I think you more or less answered it. And I can surmise the answer too, but it's a question from one of my board members, so I have to ask it anyway. There's two questions actually. First one is, why is this being done piecemeal? And again, I think I know the answer. Yeah, I think you more or less answered it, but I need to ask it. Why is this being done piecemeal? And I think I know the answer to this too, but what's to stop a free-for-all from all restaurants doing this?
So Yeah.
Oh,
go ahead, Emily. Yeah.
Sure. So, I want to reiterate that the goal of doing a robust community engagement around design guidelines and all of the work that we're going to be putting into the program, the permanent program development in 2022, the goal is to not be piecemeal. The goal is to be comprehensive and inclusive of our sister agencies, of the industry, and of all of the communities, businesses, and residents that have felt the impacts of this program, both positive and negative. The goal is to transition from what was an emergency response to a dire situation to really move towards a thoughtful, inclusive, and comprehensive program that's going to really help balance out all the different needs and uses on our city streets and make sure that we have, a thriving open restaurant program for years to come.
Okay. And to stop it from any restaurant doing this, there's a public
Yeah,
hearing for the streets, right?
I think that's, we answered a little bit before, but yes, the public hearings plus community board input for the sidewalks. And also these applications will have full review. So it will not be a self-certification like it has been, where restaurants can basically just say, yes, I'm certifying that I will follow all of these rules and then put their setups out. There'll be a review process, which we think will be much more robust than what it has currently been. Which is
Have you guys talked about complaint process and how that's?
Sorry, I talked about what?
Let's say you approve these, right? We've had these in the street, and then the complaint process. Have you
Yes,
talked about that
so yes, we have a full enforcement team that is going to be hired that will be enforcing these. They'll be enforcing for structures, making sure that they're in compliance, making sure that there is access to full accessibility on both the sidewalk and the roadway. There's space for pedestrians to pass through, noise, etc. So enforcement and compliance is of utmost importance in the permanent program.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and Laura.
Thank you. One of my questions was about the enforcement mechanism. My board didn't vote for the text amendment change, way back because we felt it was premature because we didn't have any guidelines. And I want to apologize. I had a medical call I had to take, so I didn't hear all of the presentation. I apologize. So I don't know if you covered this, but we have an issue where we have a restaurant and their street set up covers several stores beyond them. Is that going to continue to be the case, or is it strictly the space in front of your establishment?
Strictly the space in front of your establishment.
Okay. When you mention a public hearing, is that a public hearing that is done by the community board? The way we review SLA licenses, is that what you're?
No, it would be a public hearing similar to ones that are done for revocable consents.
And who holds those public hearings?
DOT holds them, but yes, DOT holds them.
Okay.
They're open to the public.
Okay, they're open to the public. But the community board would have someone in the enforcement mechanism to be set up. That would be our line if there are issues. I mean, it was in the news recently, a top of one of them came off during a windstorm recently, and it was a big thing in Manhattan, lower Manhattan. There's safety, but our concern was, as was stated already, severe parking and congestion problems. If you have a street full of restaurants, which we have areas like that, and they all participate in this, you've lost the entire parking of that block.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering, the way it is with bars now, that 500-foot rule, you're not supposed to have more than 2 or 3 bars in a certain area. is that not an issue? If every single restaurant on a street, and there are many, want to do it, there's no problem with that? There's no rule about how many could be in a certain area?
So this is actually something that we are looking at quite closely within the design guidelines and how we would design for this, as well as having our reviewers check for that. So if every restaurant applies, there may be, our reviewers would be checking for that street and what it would look like, and making sure that there is still ample space for other activity on
In
the
our
street.
community board, we have a Johnson area that's basically all restaurants, like practically. And it's already very congested, and there are issues. And so that is something to look at, the impact on the street parking and the congestion on, depending on the number of restaurants on that block. Sidewalks, versus sidewalks and streets.
Sure.
I think you should be looking at that for oversaturation and the impacts on the community.
Yeah, that is really helpful. Thank you.
Are there any other hands, Chris?
I see George's hand again.
Yeah, sorry, a question popped up since I was trying to look for my notes. When we went through the text amendment, one of the issues that I raised at Borough Board was the issue of noise. In this presentation, you say that that's a responsibility you're now going to be sharing with the NYPD. My concern is in my district, I have Katona Avenue and the Woodlawn section of my district that is mostly restaurants. And we have received complaints from homeowners, which are literally on the half block around the corner, about noise. So when we've made complaints to the NYPD, and I had this conversation with the NYPD and with DEP, the complaints are not necessarily about amplified sound. It's about the constituents or the patrons of that restaurant that are talking very loudly, or, hanging out, smoking cigarettes and stuff like that, which is not something that's enforced by the NYPD or DEP. They don't go to a table and put a sound meter and say, excuse me, you guys are too loud, you need to cut it out. And to your point with the design commission, not every outdoor restaurant is built the same. You have Enzo's in, I think it's Williamsbridge Road in the Bronx, that has a complete enclosure. It doesn't even look like it's an outdoor seating restaurant.
That's right, yeah.
It's completely enclosed, and it has like a double door feature. The one on Woodlawn in my district in Katona, which is the Rambling House, is literally just a wooden structure, and there's no windows or anything like that, nor should they be. I mean, again, I'm not an architect. So how do you deal with that design-wise, or what protections will you put in place? Because now you're making this a permanent feature, whereas in the winter time and stuff like that, like especially right now, they didn't have to worry about that sort of thing because nobody was dining outdoors, especially in really cold winters. Now you're going to be a permanent feature, and are you going to design? Is it going to be a design element where the sound is going to stay inside, or is it going to be something that can be amplified?
So I think the first point on noise that I want to make is that right now restaurants, in the permanent program, restaurants will have to follow the previous sidewalk cafe operation of hours. So they'll close earlier than they do right now. In the emergency program, hours have been extended to more than they were previously, and so in the permanent program that would be enforced more than it is being now. So that's first thing. Second, on design, I think this is something that we're really taking a close look at, and how noise does affect design. And one of the things that we are also looking at is seasonality, to go to your point on winter dining, and if seasonality in the roadway is something that we will commit to, or commit to in all places. So this is a bunch. I think we are also thinking about a lot of the points that you're making, and it's very helpful to hear it from you as well. And as we develop more concrete guidelines, we will be coming back, of course, to let you know where we are at in that process. But right now, these are all, we're just taking it in and coming up with some next steps.
Thank you.
right.
Any hands, Chris?
Yeah. So Arlene, I saw your hand back up.
I'd like to find out. We have an issue along the 138th Street corridor and Brook Avenue and Willis Avenue, where you have, to George's point, 10 roofs, wood structures that don't look very safe at all. And I want to know what is, and they're enclosed off, they're not open, right? So what is DOT doing at present to inspect those structures to make sure they're safe? That's the first question.
We have inspectors going out. If there's specific places that you're concerned with, you can send it to the Bronx Borough Commissioner's office and we can have our inspectors go
So
out
all
again, but
along
they're going back.
138th Street is public safety issues there. And
We can have inspectors go out and take a
the
look.
manner
I'll put
in
my
which,
contact information in the chat.
Thanks,
okay,
Teresa.
all right. And the other issue for us in the district, of course, is public safety and line of sight views and being able to contact agency that will go out, inspect, and do enforcement, right? Because right now you also have a condition where there are cinder blocks taking parking offline that is being used by for parking for the individual or the entity that owns the restaurant, right? So again, the issue for this district is enforcement and safety, both of the structure and having proper design guidelines that is being enforced so that you do not have essentially shacks popping up all along the 138th Street corridor.
Yeah, we completely agree. We think enforcement is really of utmost importance in this permanent program, and we want to make sure that all of the restaurants are in compliance, that they're enforcing, that DOT and other city agencies are enforcing all of the rules, that the restaurants are following the rules. And that is why we are hiring a full enforcement team that will be dedicated just to this program. So we completely agree with you on that. That is really, we're on the same page there.
So what is right now, who should you call if you have a problem that you want either DOT or someone to take a look at to resolve an issue? Because we get complaints all the time.
You can either call 311 or you can call the DOT Borough Commissioner's office and they can we can take down any areas or issues that you have and then send our inspectors out there.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask additionally, what are the structure guidelines? What should it look like? What should it not look like? And where can we find that information? Because if it is something is in compliance, but perhaps it doesn't look like it is to the board members and the community, that might be a thin line. And so
Sure. All of the information is on our website at newyorkcity.gov/open restaurants. Emily had put the website in the chat and just put it. Yeah, she just linked it right now.
And this is the current.
That is the current. Yes, it will. There's chance that it changes after we go through this full process and come out with guidelines that will be for the permanent program. But this is the current guidelines.
Okay, so and it just is a little uncomfortable when we hear you're thinking about this and you'll be thinking about certain things, and we often prefer to have a more concrete answer to to questions, and I could see some apprehension on the call, meeting, Zoom, whatever. And I think some of that comes from the thinking about, because we've had the experience where thinking about doesn't actually turn into action for, or at least that action that we would like. So if we could somehow have more concrete responses.
As we have more concrete answers, I am totally happy to come and bring you concrete answers. I think right now we are really in the listening process of like seeing what has worked for the community, what has not worked. But we are also ready to come and give you those concrete answers once we have them developed.
Alrighty, thank you. Do we have any more hands up, Chris?
Yep. Laura.
Yeah. Oh, Laura, I didn't see yours go back up. I'm sorry.
No, it was down. I just quickly. I heard you say you're going to DOT will hold a public hearing. That is for something initial, I assume, of course. But will there be renewal public hearings, like every year, 2 years, 3 years? Because something goes up, and then over time, community board becomes aware of a lot of problems, and it would be a little bit of leverage if those restaurants, bars knew that they had to come up for a renewal, and there would be a public hearing. So how often?
Yes, for both, for renewal and for the initial.
Okay, thank you.
And I did see one other new hand, Robert Garmendes. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Robert, if you are
I'm
still
sorry.
seeking to ask a question.
Yeah, I just stepped away for a second.
That's okay.
My question again is, because I've actually been asked by a couple of judges, alcohol consumption outside the structures, what's it going to be? They're looking for guidance.
Currently, they're allowed to have alcohol consumption in the temporary program. We are working with SLA to figure out exactly what that will look like in the permanent program.
Even with the spillover, if possible, as it gets warmer again?
Spillover meaning outside of the structures?
Exactly.
No. In the structures.
Only in the structures. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay then. Thank you.
All right, Deputy, I believe that is it. Eric mentioned from DCP mentioned in the chat that he wanted to make a brief point, I think, regarding this topic. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted that, I think a lot of you are raising issues around how are the guidelines going to be shared and how are they going to be understood and clear. And I just want to reinforce that one of our goals is to make sure that they're very clear, that they're visually accessible, so that it can be very complex with a lot of different rules and regulations. I think one of our goals is that when we come back with draft design guidelines, and ultimately the final version of this is something that is very visual, that provides very clear guidance. It provides examples of what we think will be, possible on our streets and sidewalks. So just we recognize that we need to, really make sure that we create materials and resources that really show what this program means and will look like on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just one last question. As the various boards have listed some things for consideration in the application process, is there, or where should they send, though, if they want to make a written list of what should be included, or direct that, where should they direct that to?
There's on our website, there is an area where they can leave comments. It's the same website that Emily had put in the chat before, and there's an area there that they can leave any sort of comments that they would like.
And can they also send it via email to the borough?
Sure.
Borough person. Okay, so there we have it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, and as always, thank you for the information, and we look forward to hearing more about this. Our next presentation um, is a presentation on good urban design, and I'm not sure because I can't see, but everyone who's in the meeting, but I think that we have our presenter here. So I'm just going to proceed. We have James Harris, the intergovernmental liaison for Department of City Planning. So, James, are you here?
Hello, this is actually Eugenia Di Girolamo from the Department of City Planning. James is not here, but I'll be doing the presentation today.
Okay, thank you so much. Great to have you. I'm sorry I didn't have your name here, and take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the board members and to all the community leaders for giving us time today. As I mentioned, my name is Eugenia Di Girolamo. I'm the Deputy Director of the Urban Design Division at the Department of City Planning, and I'm joined today by my colleagues that you've met just earlier, Eric Gregory, who's the Chief Urban Designer, and by Julian Sneck, who's a Senior Designer in our office. As I briefly mentioned, today we would like to give you an update on an effort that is very important to us, which is the update to the principles of good urban design. And I'll share my screen while I give you a quick overview of the project. So the principles of good urban design, I think it's loading. Let me know if you're having any trouble seeing it. But the principles of good.
It is loading. There it is. We can see it now.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. So the principles of good urban design are principles that the Department of City Planning has developed in 2017 to really, the idea was really to have a base for all of our work, for all of the city's work, and something that we could use when we are reviewing projects, when we are doing any planning efforts in any neighborhoods, or when we do our daily work. Admittedly, though these principles, as they were first developed, they were developed for practitioners, so planners, urban designers, architects. During 2020, we took a look back at these principles, and we realized that they felt a little bit jargony. The language was not as accessible as we wanted it to be and comprehensible. And also they didn't really represent where the city was at that time or where the city has come to nowadays. And we wanted to then go through a process of re-updating them to take into account the housing crisis in which we're in, the health crisis in which we're in, and also all the equity conversations and issues that we've been talking about in the past year. So we really wanted to look at them again in these lenses again. So we created this site called goodurbandesign.nyc. We'll drop a link in the chat as well that we invite you to visit and share your feedback on. So what we wanted to do this time around was to update the principles, but involve all New Yorkers in that process of updating the principles. So today I'll walk you through that process a little bit and kind of walk you through what is the ask that we are presenting to you today. As I said, this is the goal here was to create an interactive website that will allow us to engage communities directly and throughout the city to really help everyone better their built environment through ensuring that the urban design principles that we use as a base of our work incorporate all the neighborhood perspectives and needs. And what I would add to this is that we really wanted to create a tool through this website that would really help you and help communities engage with processes and making public processes like the land use process, and also give you tools to make change in your communities. So who is this website for? As I said, this is mainly for the general public, but it is also for community boards, for New York City schools. We've been doing some outreach to schools, and just recently we talked to Fannie Lou Hamer, which is a great school in your borough as well. We want this to be useful for community-based organizations, local bids, but also city planning and other agencies. We want institutions and experts to use it, and also architects and developers as they design and construct buildings in the city. So the objectives of this website are, in the short term, to enhance the way we do engagement at DCP. We are trying a new thing for us, which is in remote engagement, which is online engagement, also coupled with more standard and traditional type of engagement. As I said, we want to offer an educational tool on urban design for everyone who's interested, and of course, updating the principles of good urban design. In the long term, we would love for this materials that are available on the site and the principles to help inform the community district needs statements that you are asked to produce every year. And of course, making sure that we are more and more equitable in the way we do engagement and planning in the city. For that, I'm not sure what happened. So just so you're aware, there are 3 activities on the site. There is a survey, which is called Tell Us What Matters Most in Your Neighborhood. And for this activity, we ask New Yorkers to share their location, what aspects of the principles most resonate with them in where they are in their community. And also some brief identifiers, so we're aware of who's responding to the survey, and those are optional, of course. The feedback that we will receive will inform us directly in how we rewrite the principles, and also will make us understand a little bit more granularly how people feel in their neighborhood because of the geographic location that we ask at the beginning of the survey. Then we have what we've been calling an ideas wall. Is a tool where people can share a story about their neighborhood. Again, we see we ask for the participant's location, and we ask for some qualitative aspects of what people like or dislike of their neighborhood. And this has been quite interesting because people can share what they feel and what they think about their neighborhood, and people can also start talking to each other about what is good and what is not working in their neighborhood at the time. And again, this could also potentially start to help the community district needs statement as well. And then we have a forum where we have shared a first draft or first redraft, I should say, of the principles in a language that we think is a lot more accessible for everyone. And anyone can go in, read each principle, and actually provide specific and detailed opinion on the text and the content of the principles. And also we are asking, what did we miss? Is there a principle that we have not included that you think should make it in, that we should really consider and include in the principles of good urban design? Another exciting feature that we have included in the site is this community planning guide, and I'll show you in more detail in a second. It is really a way for us to put in one page and in one place any important information that any community member could look into to get involved in the civic processes, from asking for a new tree or a bike rack to getting involved in a neighborhood planning effort or asking for a bigger change in their neighborhood. Of course, you'll see the principles of good urban design, and as a resource, this will again inform the community district needs statement. We've done some outreach already. The site opened in mid-September, and we've been doing outreach through some community boards. We reach out some schools, local groups. We have ads on Link NYC, on the ferries, social media. And of course, there's a lot of excitement about access to these new resources that can allow communities to better advocate for a good urban design in their neighborhoods. But we've also learned some concerns, heard some concern that we are already starting to address. Initially, we were going to close the survey at the end of the year, but because of the excitement around the site, and we've heard community boards telling us that they needed a little bit more time to engage with it, we decided to push the deadline to the end of February 2022. So there's still 2 more months, 2.5 months actually, to engage with the site. There were some concerns about accessibility in terms of language and internet proficiency. So what we've done is that the site can be translated through Google Translate entirely. We know that that is not the perfect solution. So what we're doing is we are actively translating the surveys in Spanish, French for now, and we're working on other prominent languages in New York City to add to the site as well. We've also been working with NYCHA, New York Public Libraries, and Department for the Aging in understanding how can we partner with them to reach New Yorkers that don't have an internet proficiency, that don't have access to the internet. And so we'll be working with them to have physical copies in community centers or at NYCHA campuses. We're still figuring this out. But how can we actually share physical copies of the survey so that people can fill them up and share them back with us? And also, how will the data that we receive from these surveys be utilized and communicated and genuinely used to improve the public realm? So we are committing to share the data that we receive with community boards if they're interested in hearing directly what their constituents have said. And we are also working in making it as clear as possible what the feedback is that we received and how it's going to make it its way into the principles. That said, the more New Yorkers we hear from and the more representation we have from every community board, the better we'll be able to do our job in making sure that these principles actually reflect the interest and the desires of every New Yorker in the city. As I mentioned already, the survey portion of the site will be open until the end of February. We're still doing a lot of broad engagement all the way until the end of February to make sure that we reach as many people as possible. In March, we'll take our time to review the data and start to understand how the feedback can should be considered to update the principles of good urban design. And April to May, we'll be releasing the updated urban design principles, and we'll be doing some outreach again to just share the results again. And we'll potentially consider making this a yearly process, depending on the feedback that we receive, to keep the conversation going and making sure that community engagement doesn't just stop here, but it's a continuous conversation with every community. So thank you so much for your time. We invite you to visit the site. I'm going to show it to you very quickly. This is the site itself. Again, it's goodurbandesign.nyc. Here you have it in Italian because I'm an Italian speaker, so my computer is in Italian, but if you click on this link, you can pick any language and the site will be automatically translated in any language. We have a brief video, which is under 4 minutes long, which explains what is urban design and how the built environment shapes your experience of the city. The video is in English, but it's also available in Spanish, and through Google could also have closed captioning in any language. You'll see here, these are the 3 activities I talked about: the survey, the wall of ideas, and the forum. Something I just want to walk you through very quickly is this community planning guide. It is referenced in many places throughout the website, but it's a PDF that is clickable and actually would lead to a resources page with extremely useful links for any community member. So as I mentioned, this is a community planning guide, and the question it answers is the simple one: want to make a change in your neighborhood? So how would you like to shape it? I would like to make an improvement, like a tree, requesting a tree or a park bench. Or you have a big idea for your neighborhood, or I want to give feedback of an existing process or plan. And so this super simple graphic just walks you through the questions that you can answer. And then by clicking on this numbers, the stars, the orange stars, what this does, it leads to a resources page on the website that has extremely helpful links. Connects you to DOT, or actually we just received feedback from a few boards that they wanted people to be able to access where is their community board. So how do I find my community board? How can I reach them? Or how can I reach a council member? Or how can I get involved in the ULURP process? So we think that is a quite unhelpful resource for all New Yorkers. And then on the side as well, you'll see in the top part of the page, you have some directions on how to use the principles in your day-to-day life as you're evaluating changes in your neighborhood. A brief statement on our approach to engagement, and also a glossary of some of the key terms that are often used in land use, planning, and urban design, so that we can make these terms a little bit more available to anyone. So this ends my presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. And again, we invite you to share this link, take part of the survey yourself, share it with your constituents, with your family, with your friends that live in New York. And if for any community boards, I should have said, I really invite you to request a presentation to your community board if you're interested. We'd be happy to come and present this work to you and your constituents.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have any hands raised for questions? And
not yet. Just a
not yet.
reminder.
So we'll give
Any-
everybody a few minutes to take all of that in. Of course, there's the chance that you've answered all of the questions, and that the presentation was so comprehensive that no questions are needed.
Well, George raised his hand, so George, go ahead.
Because nobody leaves unscathed. So I genuinely think any effort to include more people in the conversation is always a valiant effort. My cynicism as a New Yorker and as a city employee is that we've been down this road before. Community boards have a district needs statement that have been, I don't want to say largely ignored. I'll only speak to what we've done here at Community Board 12. When I got here, we had more than 53 different projects that were in our district needs statement, and I whittled that down. But for a very long time, for example, we had a recreation center that was recently built. We have a brand new YMCA, but that was on our register for 30 plus years. And the only reason it was built was not because the city or someone in the city said, oh, hey, let's do this. It's because the Speaker of the New York State Legislature, Carl Heastie, wanted to finally get it built. And he listened to his constituents and they built it. So I'm just curious, what is the ultimate goal here? Are you trying to influence the city agencies to do what the community wants? or are you trying to build support? Because if I recall correctly, at the beginning of this city council, we used to have participatory budgeting. That's gone now. And the reason it's gone is because you only had a few people who were fairly organized that were participating in this sort of thing. And they ultimately ruled that participatory budgeting, which was supposed to be inclusive and bring more people in, was actually very limiting because you only had a small group of select people who were participating in it, and they were only putting their projects forward. So again, many of the council members abandoned participatory budgeting. I mean, one of our council member, Andy King, didn't participate in it at all. And the other council member, Andy Cohen, abandoned it in his final 2 years in office. So, well, he left to become a judge. I don't know what our current council members are doing. I mean, I think Councilmember Riley is doing participatory budgeting, but on a much smaller scale. And I don't know what Councilmember Dinowitz is going to do. So, you know, I'm just curious, what is the game plan here? Because if you want to engage more people, then you should do what you guys to do. So if they say, for example, we want a brand new park or we want improvements to something, do it. Because my experience, for example, with parks and what I do as a district manager with my board members is I try to influence them and say, hey, these are the parks that the Parks Department already has in the pipeline and are looking to move forward, and we need to work with them so that they can do X. It's not the other way around. You know, it's not that we have, for example, and this will be my final point so that other people can ask questions. We have a master plan for both Orchard Beach and for Shoelace Park. Shoelace Park is in my district. Pelham Bay Park is part of my district. It's a common area for 3 different community boards. Those have all taken multi-years. I mean, it was only this borough president and our speaker that finally secured money to start the phase 1 of Orchard Beach. Shoelace Park also has a master plan that is nowhere near getting done. And this was a community engagement process that went through the design charrettes. That's 20 years ago. So now we have to re-engage the community because many of those people who were engaged in that initial process haven't seen the fruits of their labor. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, you lose people when you say, hey, we're going to do something and then you don't do it. So my point on this is the city council, for example, you spoke about land use, yet the community boards and the borough president's office only have advisory roles in that process. So, you know, what's to say that the council member with his, you know, land use preferential deferment doesn't want to do that project? You know, is the city going to come in and say, no, you know, we have 100,000 people in this respective community board that signed up for this? So again, I just want to be clear because, you know, this is another way to sort of let people down. And I'm trying, my job as a district manager is to actually engage people and do this. So I will promote this as a forum and a vehicle to have more of your say input, but that's what our role is too. That's what we do almost on a daily basis. So, you know, again, I'm just trying to, I don't want to be cynical. I'm trying to be positive, but I just want to make sure that, like, if we promote something and we push that thing, that it gets done, that it's not ignored. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. I actually really appreciate the comment and the questions. Something that I want to clarify is that, and maybe I've misspoken, is that this website and this effort doesn't replace the community district needs statement. We are hoping that the information that is shared on the site can further help the community boards and the communities in the process as they are shaping their requests, their statements in the community district for the community district needs. So I totally understand the frustration of what a process like this could create. We do feel, though, that we do need to have shared principles that we all agree on as a city, and also for us to understand how the principles of good urban design shape are perceived across the city. So that when one thing you'll see in the survey, we have 4 draft principles at the moment. And what we ask people is to ask us where they're from, what their neighborhood is first, and then to rank them so that we start to understand how communities all across the city, what is their priority in terms of good urban design and how they want to feel in their neighborhood. And as much as this is not information that is going to get these communities a new park or a new community center, it is something that it's extremely important to us as the basis for conversation when we start having these type of conversations and what should happen. So as much as I understand that this is probably not exactly answering your question or enough, I hope that you also understand what the effort is here and what the goal is and what we're trying to do. And we definitely welcome any type of feedback of how can we make this better? What type of tool, what type of information does your community need to make your job better as well, and to make their voices heard more with the city, with developers, with city agencies. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here.
Thank you.
Thank you, George, and thank you for that response. Are there any other hands up?
Yeah, I see Dr. Michael Burke's hand is raised. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy, Mr. McShane. So I had my hand raised initially, and then I took it down because I was perusing your website, and in particular the survey as you were presenting it, and so I took my hand down. But our district manager just asked a question, which actually caused me to raise my hand again. So the reason that I'm doing that is because I heard you say something about in urban planning as far as contextual development. We took a vote that I still think was how should I use the word? It did not achieve, in my opinion. I mean, it had some context, but not a lot. So part of that vote was city planning came to us and said, well, we want to keep the neighborhood contextual as far as developers and engaging those developers. However, some of those developers have come in and you still see buildings that are out of context as it pertains to the character of the neighborhood. And so I'm looking at this survey, which is somewhat repetitive because it seems like, 10 years ago, as the district manager said, we've done this, yet and still you're asking the same question, which to me is somewhat superfluous as to what we're doing at CB12, or maybe some of the other community boards are doing as well. And so my question is, how much are you truly listening to what the residents are saying? Because to me, if that was the case, the vote that we did take, which was supposed to correct some of the maladies that were happening with developers prior to 2011, should not still be occurring now. And they are. And I heard you in response to Mr. Torres say something about relationships between city planning and development. So if you could address that question, I would be deeply appreciative to you. And so I'm sure members of our board will as well. So thank you.
Yes, so I'll do so to the best of my abilities, and I thank you, of course, for the question and specifically to take a look at the site and actually engaging with it, which is what I think is the most important thing. We definitely want to hear from everyone in the city. This is an effort that we're making to update the principles that were released in 2017, as I said. We want communities to make their voice heard, but mainly what we want is for this to be a tool for when communities engage in those conversations with city planning. So what I want to clarify is that this is not a site to engage in local level planning conversations. We still think that should happen with your community planner, with your local borough office from the Department of City Planning. And that's the right place to have those conversations. This is more of a tool to making sure that the language that we use and some of the wishes from the community from a more of a principle level are taken into account. So I do understand that this may not be a satisfactory answer, but I just want to reiterate that this is it's a way for us to have shared principles that cover the entirety of the city, and then we hope that communities will also use the tools that are shared on the site to have their individual and more site-specific conversations with their local planners.
Thank you. Any other hands?
I see. Well, I saw for a second Laura Spalter's hand. I don't know if she had
I
a
didn't know
question.
whether to lower it when I just heard that response. We have areas in Community Board 8, particularly in Kingsbridge and Kingsbridge Heights, where we have 1 and 2 family homes, many pockets, and a very wonderful character to these neighborhoods. Unfortunately, they're zoned R6. The community has made their position known to the board, and we have made our position known to city planning, but it's a very dismal outlook for down zoning right now in the city with city planning, so that we could bring the zoning in line with what's actually there. And how many years ago these neighborhoods were zoned R6, which allows big high rises. And I'm sure all the boards have this problem where something is torn down and something giant comes up. And of course that impacts the neighborhood in terms of parking and everything else. I don't know. I had my hand up because I was thinking about this is the problem and this is what I know people are screaming for involving city planning, but I don't know how helpful this site will be with that issue. Will it? We've had conversations with our representatives. We have, but it's just it seems like a very uphill battle today.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yeah,
That's my comment.
I would say that, yeah, that would be the right way of going about it is to go directly with your representatives. Yes. This is a much more general and citywide effort here.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you again. Any more hands? Any additional hands?
Not at this time.
Okay. So again, thank you for the presentation. We are happy to have city planning here again in the future to further discuss the survey and other issues. And we thank you for your time today.
Great. Thank you so much for letting us present.
Absolutely, anytime. Anytime. So as anticipated, we had 2 really great presentations and robust discussions. And now we just entered the part of our meeting where we do announcements. And I know we have, it being the holiday season, there might be some things each board would like to announce. And then also we would open the floor to agencies in the room who would like to also speak to any of their upcoming programs and such. So as I ramble on a little bit, for context, I'm giving folks time to raise their hands to be acknowledged by our Director of IT, Chris McShane. Any hands up, Chris?
Not yet. Let's see.
Well, George, do you want to ask a question? Because usually that just gets everybody's juices flowing.
I'm
Not
good.
this
Just
time.
happy holidays to everybody. Merry Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate. Have a great time. And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year. And we have 5 hands up. No.
I see. Tom Lucania has his hand up. So.
Okay.
Actually, it was a mistake.
Oh.
I was playing with my numbers here, but since I do have it, I do want to wish everybody a wonderful, happy holiday season to everybody, and we look forward to next year.
Thank you. Still no hands, Chris?
Mike Sharp just raised his hand from
I was
Department of
just
Finance.
about to call him out because we always get a great message from the Department of Finance with Mr. Sharp on board. So go ahead.
If I can live up to that introduction. First of all, can you hear me? Having some tech issues.
Oh, you're a little low.
Okay. How about now? Still low?
Good.
How about now? Well,
Oh yeah, that's loud
in
enough.
any
Yep.
case, still not loud enough.
No, it is. It is. You're good.
Okay. Three things from the Department of Finance, and they'll be quick. The lien sale. This is for people who owe taxes, back taxes, 3 years or more, total of $5,000 or more. The last day to take action to come off of the lien sale is today. That's Thursday, the 16th. The lien sale is scheduled for tomorrow. So if you know anyone that's been sort of contemplating making a move, doing something, trying to reach out or waiting to see if something is going to be canceled, I don't suggest that they do that. Get to a business center, reach out to 311, submit one of the 6 ways to get off of the lien sale, and 5 of them don't require you to have any money at this time. Just take an action, fill out a document. So I wanted to say that first. Next, on the matter of property taxes, individuals who live in condos and co-ops, this is the time, if you're a co-op or a condo participates in the abatement program, to let your management know that this is your primary residence. They handle the rest, but make that known to your management. Co-op and condo abatement season is here, and also property tax exemption renewal season is here. It'll run until March 15th of 2022, but apply now and get those applications in early. And lastly, the individuals who are in the rent freeze program, many of them have not renewed over the COVID pandemic, maybe for a number of different reasons. By all means, be proactive and send the renewal application in. We have not been revoking participants if we don't have their information, but that eventually has to sunset. It's a matter of law. So if we don't have an application, we have to pull that person from the program. So we just encourage all of our community stakeholders to let people know that if you're in the rent freeze program, check your status, proactively send in an application. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharp. Any other hands?
I don't see any others.
Okay. Well, at this time, I would like to just say that, as many of you already know, or today, this meeting is my last meeting as your deputy borough president, and it is very humbling to have this experience to work with all of you over the last 4 years in various capacities and on various issues, and it has meant a lot to me because of just how engaged everyone at this level is in their community. And I've often said that you guys are special to me because you are volunteers for the most part, and really have more to do with the day-to-day constituents than some of the elected officials, because you're the first contact on a pothole, a street issue, certain things like that, and that remains to be the case as we go along. I know I'm not the only one who this is the last meeting for, but I want to express my thanks to all of you who have served your communities. And I want to especially thank the borough president's staff who, every month, prepares the meetings, prepares the agendas, prepares all of the information that you receive. And I know that is a tremendous task. And I also want to thank them entering into this pandemic, really hitting the ground running on this platform. I thank you, Marisol, again, for putting all of the agendas together. And Chris, thank you for all of your tech knowledge and being my Ed McMahon. To thank you for that, and all of the staff that's on this Zoom, and those that are not represented, who have come in and out of the room, just to give us all information. It has been a pleasure to work with all of you. I know that you will continue your rigorous defense of your respective communities and constituencies, and it is not goodbye, as I am a humble Bronxite, and I will be here nagging some community board about something in the future. But I say that as a humble thank you, and that's it. Till next time. Are there any other folks, I guess, that want to say I know goodbye? It's their last meeting or anything like that. Any hands up, Chris? Any of those types of things? See, now that is a comprehensive presentation. Let that be to everyone. Let that be a lesson to everyone. That's how you do it. That's how you close a meeting.
I see Laura raising her hand, and I see that Yokorina raised her hand virtually as well. So Laura, I saw you first, so go ahead.
Okay.
Deputy, and I want to thank the whole staff for informative meetings. I know when I became chair of Community Board 8, I have found them informative. I have found the important, and the way everything is conducted, and the atmosphere is very conducive to learning and sharing. And I want to thank everybody for that. And you've made that possible. So thank you. I'm sure I'm speaking for many of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Jokarina from Emergency Management. I just want to thank everyone for, always, being so supportive. I mean, I go through community boards in the 5 boroughs. I go to borough cabinet meetings in 4 boroughs because one of them do not do it. But it's always such a pleasure to work with the team in the Bronx, and it's always, there's always something else that you guys need and keep us on our toes. And that's something that we really appreciate here at Emergency Management, because, often we have emergency and often we cannot message about, but I know that, Marisol and the team are always like, asking, well, what is this and what's going on? So it's always a pleasure to have people that, that are not only receiving, but also inquiring and keeping us on our toes. So really appreciate the partnership, and I look forward to work with each one of you, either in the new administration and something else. I'm sure we're going to run paths. So look forward to continue this relationship. And I'm here if everyone needs me. God knows what's going to happen next year, but I'm still here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did not say his name, and I think that I should say his name. Tom, as you all know, you work so with you guys. And his staff need to be thanked and congratulated as well. I think they are a tremendous liaison with information, and we seek to make sure that you guys have everything you need in terms of communication. And so without Tom and his staff, I think that would absolutely not happen as well as it does. So thank you also, Tom, and I wanted to mention your name as well. Any other hands up before we go?
Hi, Deputy. I just wanted to just say thank you for your leadership these last 4 years.
Marisol, don't make me cry.
I just can't let the meeting go without saying thank you for all that you provided the staff with your encouragement, your support, and we definitely appreciate the let's see, how should I say, the atmosphere that you've provided for input and just the great conversations that have been had over these meetings. So I appreciate you and I thank you very much. And yeah, like you said, see you later.
Thank you. Almost, but you didn't get me.
And yes, thank you for the kind words and obviously, you know, your leadership in all these meetings. You know, I think we made a good tag team on the audio part of running the show here as we switch to this virtual mode. So we will see what the future holds as far as everybody else goes. You know, I think it depends on COVID and virtual meetings and all that. You know, we'll see what Borough Board looks like, but you know, whether it's there or elsewhere, with the new year coming up, you know, as everybody said, I'm sure we will all see each other one way or another.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And happy holidays to everyone. Happy New Year for those who I don't see in the interim. And then to everyone, let's stay on until the live ends and then we can disperse. So, Chris, can you take us off?
Oh, yeah.